It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
All right, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. The show would not be possible if it was not for our sponsors, cart-king.com. If you've ever thought about going into the mobile cart or kiosk business, you call 877-986-7771, cart-king.com. They'll custom design it for you, custom build it for you, and they'll ship it worldwide. Been in business 20 years, serving clients and corporations across the United States. PureSoapFlake.com. You can give them a call at 218-568-2525. You can purchase their product at PureSoapFlake.com, GreenHome.com, Amazon.com, and check out Whole Foods. Go to your Whole Foods and look on the shelf and see if you can find Pure Soap Flake. And if you can't find it, find the manager and make sure they have it in there. What you do is they can bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. PureSoapFlake.com, 218-568-2525, AlmightyGold.com. Gold! You can invest in gold as little as 1/10 of a gram. It's like $6. You don't have to wait for thousands of dollars. You can start putting away $6 a week, $6 every couple of days. Save it in these little carrot bars that come in credit card size packaging there. AlmightyGold.com. You can even go into the gold business with them, become an affiliate, make some money on every gold purchased from your website, your email, your Facebook. AlmightyGold.com. Gold. Let's see what else. Emailrevealer.com. That's me. Adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, email tracing. Back child support, someone owes you money. We can locate their hidden bank accounts, locate their place of employment, and help you collect on that judgment. Emailrevealer.com. Okay, we're joined again by Montgomery Blair Sibley, who was the attorney for Deborah Jeane Palfrey. She was the D.C. madam. You might recall that case way back, 2008. Mr. Sibley, are you there?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ed, for having me back on your show.
No, thank you so much, and thank you for keeping me updated. You send me those email notifications all the time. I love to get those. Remind the audience, who is Montgomery Blair Sibley?
Well, I'm an attorney, and I practiced law for a number of years, and in the period of around 2005, 2006, I was primarily focused on forfeiture cases. Those are actions where the government seizes people's property and forfeits the property of the government, whether they charge the person with a crime or not.
That's a nice business to be in, right?
Well, yeah, the government forfeits over $1 billion a year, and so even our hyper-efficient government is going to make some mistakes. So there's a couple $100 million of mistakes charitably that are being forfeited that probably shouldn't if due process is applied, which it often isn't.
And is that how you got involved with Miss Palfrey?
It is. I was representing escort services in New York and Florida, and our paths crossed through mutual acquaintances when her property was seized by the U.S. Postal Service in the fall of 2006.
U.S. Postal Service. That's interesting. Now, is that common for a prostitution or an escort service to be charged through the U.S. Postal Service?
It is curious, and I'll just give you the quick background. The way the service operates is Jeane Palfrey, the D.C. madam, later known, was living in California, but operating the service through her telephone to escorts in the Washington, D.C. area. The way the escorts paid Miss Palfrey was by getting U.S. postal money orders and sending them to a P.O. box in California. Most people don't realize that every time you buy a postal money order, your photograph is taken, and the U.S. Postal Service Inspector General keeps track of a statistically high number of postal money orders going to one P.O. box. So eventually a red flag went up out of Baltimore that, hey, why is this person getting all these these money orders for $250 or whatever it was each time an escort would send her some money. So the Postal Service started going through the photographs, identifying cars, license plates, following the women, and all of a sudden realized they had a huge escort service going on under their noses, and that's what triggered the investigation.
Now, could she have avoided that problem if she had used FedEx and UPS?
If you want the honest answer, it's no, because the same analysis is going on by other government agencies of those massive shippers as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so then now the last time we talked, you had filed some new kind of court filings, and in it you had included some phone records.
Well, yeah, when the primary season hit back in January of 2016, I had a dilemma, Ed, because there was at least one presidential candidate and a handful of congressional candidates whose names appeared in the D.C. Madam's records. Now, just to go back a couple years, when the litigation ended based upon her actually dying in curious circumstances in April of 2008, I was slapped with a court order that said I cannot release the information I received during my representations of Ms. Palfrey. And what most people don't realize is while I did get a lot of records, of telephone records, and identified who the individuals were, I also subpoenaed 83 other escort agencies operating in the District of Columbia. And the 83 escort agencies were actually owned by 5 parent companies, if you trace back through the corporate nonsense. And each escort agency catered to a different taste, whether it's big-breasted women or pregnant women or whatever kink you can imagine. There was an escort agency for that. So I also received subpoena returns from those telephone records as well. So not only did I have close to 1,000 D.C. Madam records of individuals who were making calls and booking appointments with the escorts, but 40 other escort agency telephone numbers as well. So I was quickly slapped with this order that says, don't ever tell anybody about this or you'll be in contempt of court. And when the primary season rolled around in January of 2016, I went to court and I said, hey, I think I have information that the public should know about, and you ought to let me release this information publicly, or at least let me be heard as to whether it should be released publicly. The end result then was they would not allow the clerk to file the pleading. It was called a motion to dissolve a permanent injunction. They wouldn't allow me to even file a request to reconsider the order, and therefore I'm under what I consider a lifetime ban from ever being able to release this information, or even being able to petition the court to reconsider its order banning me from releasing this information. So that's where we were in 2016 when you and I last had a chance to chat about all this.
But you were able to include some of these phone records in your motion, right?
What I included was the name of the companies, but not the individuals, which I thought was a little bit close to the edge, but it was kind of a gray area because the order itself doesn't let me release the records. So I didn't technically release the records. I just said, look at these companies that are involved. They're some of the biggest players in D.C. politics, and I just think maybe the public would like to know about this. So that's how it came to pass that I sit today and was reaching out to you earlier because one of the people we actually identified back in 2007 hit the news recently for setting up a bunch of faulty information about a present presidential candidate as well. And so this just sort of reinforces that there's a treasure trove of information that people should know about, because there are public actors, political and lobbyists and the like, who were using escort services, for better or for worse. It is an imputation of someone's character, I believe, if not opening them up further down the spectrum to even blackmail going down the road.
Yeah, and there was a lot of bizarre stuff in those phone records, too, because I got a chance to look through them. Like even the Vatican, right? And Catholic churches and stuff like that. What's going on there?
There was, the consulate for the Vatican is on Massachusetts Avenue, just south of Wisconsin Avenue in D.C., and that was a regular stop for at least one of the women who worked as an escort over a 4-month period.
And there would be there would be no innocent reason for these phone numbers to turn up in those phone bills, right? Any alternative?
And the reason is there was always a cycle. There was a call to Jeane in D.C.
Right.
which was a 3 to 5 minute call. What are you looking for? Our rates, blah, blah, blah. There was Jean's call to the girl. Are you available? Can you go? Then there was Jean's call back to the number saying, yes, the girl will be there in half an hour, and these are the rates. This is what you expect. Then there'd be a fourth call from the woman who would say, I've just arrived, everything's okay. And then she knew she was safe. Otherwise, they went to plan B. And so when you have 4 calls in a row that are all connected like that, then you know that it's a service call, not someone dialing a number by mistake. Right.
Hey, did Jeane ever have any kind of confrontation with organized crime or intelligence agencies, foreign intelligence agencies trying to, use her?
Well, I can only answer that obliquely because I don't know the full answer, because nobody ever tells their attorneys the full truth, as I've come to learn. But certainly the reason she was in D.C. is because D.C. itself is an organized crime-free zone, which is why she didn't set up in New York or any other city, because there's just too many police agencies in D.C. for organized crime to get any kind of foothold down there. So that's why she was in D.C. She did have a regular contact, dinner twice a year with a member of the intelligence community. She had a quasi-romantic relationship with this gentleman. She never identified him to me or which of the alphabet agencies he worked for, but I knew there was regular communication going that way as well. And one of the things I started to develop during the case was a defense that she was acting at the behest of the U.S. government, and that's when that information began to flow in. We had what we always called the Thanksgiving Massacre, where our very friendly Judge Kessler was replaced by a very unfriendly Judge Robertson, and Judge Robertson immediately quashed all my subpoenas to the FBI and CIA and NSA and all the rest of them, and eventually got me removed from the case so that I couldn't pursue that line of inquiry.
Now, you mentioned that there was a presidential candidate that you felt was involved. There was some kind of connection. Did you ever name who that candidate was?
No, I couldn't without being contempt of court, and I do like walking around a free man a lot more than not. So I'm very respectful of court orders, even though I now feel that the fact that I can't even go back in and request them to be modified is a little beyond the pale.
Yeah. And you mentioned, too, that, a lot of people contact me after you come on the show, and they say, hey, Ed, I've seen these records. Is it possible for other people to have copies of these records? They tell me they have them?
Well, here's the problem, Ed. When the government invaded Jeane's house in October of 2006, they ran around seizing everything. Smart as they were, like Keystone cops, they ignored 2 cookie jars full of gold Cougarans, about $100,000. And in the basement of her house, she had these banker's boxes, cardboard boxes, that said phone records, 1994 to 1995, all the way to 2006, and they left those. When I came to represent Jeane, I immediately had her send me all those phone records, and a portion of them I released immediately to ABC News and Brian Russell. They did their story and obviously dropped the ball from our point of view. A portion we sent on to some kids at Brandeis University in Boston who put them online, but a large portion I never released, and another set of portion, which was the other escort agencies in town, no one's ever seen those except me because I was the only one who got the return on those. So they're records that no one's ever seen, names that no one's ever seen, about 7,000 or 8,000 names, address, phone numbers, Social Security numbers of people whose phones were being used to call the escort service of Jeane's and the other 40 escort services in town.
And how many people are involved, and how many clients do you have in the numbers? What do you think?
Well, we know Jeane had about 10,000 over that 12-year period. The period of time I got from the other escort agencies was significantly less, about a 3.5-year period, because they change their names and drop out all the time as they roll their corporate shells about.
Right.
So that was a lot less, probably between 3,000 and 4,000 got identified.
And even still, it's such a large number, 14,000 people who can't get a date without paying for it? Is that really going on out there?
That's one way of putting it. People's sexual lives are their own.
Yeah.
Between consenting adults, I don't give a darn. But the trouble is, if you're a public official and you're out there saying one thing and behaving the polar opposite, I think the public has a right to know. And also, there's this issue of blackmail going on, and I want to know that if my congressman has been involved with an escort, and now he's voting one way that isn't the result of someone putting pressure on him not to expose his philandering, if you will.
Yeah, and if you have a lot of experience representing escort services, you would know that there's a lot of blackmail that goes on around this too as well.
There can be.
Yeah.
I mean, the reputable services and the not-so-reputable services. There are women who consider themselves professional and would, go to their grave without uttering a person's name. And there are others, certain women who will do just the opposite. I guess I would leave it there.
Yeah, yeah. Now, and you mentioned the curious circumstances of the death of Miss Palfrey. Can you describe that?
Well, what we know is that she was convicted in, don't hold me to the date, but I believe it was February of 2008, when she had other counsel at that point, of the crime of money laundering, and was waiting for sentencing, which typically occurs about 6 weeks later after a pre-sentence investigation report is completed by the probation department. And during that period of time, on April 1st of 2008, she was found hanging from a rope in her mother's garden shed in Florida, where she had been staying while waiting for the sentencing to go forward. The curiosities were many, and I don't know if, Ed, you really want to go back into all that. It's kind of water under the bridge, but we were all very shocked that she would take her own life at that point in time, because we had very strong, and I was back on our team for the appeal, very strong appellate issues to raise, and a good chance that she would have stayed out of jail pending that appeal, which usually takes about 18 months. So it was peculiar. It was very peculiar, and particularly to do it in her mother's shed was something else entirely. I mean, it's hard to imagine people committing suicide. I don't know what's going on in their brain, but to do it so your mother finds you, I think, would be something beyond the pale.
Yeah, and the listeners can go back. We've done like 2 hours. We did a whole 2 hours on this topic. We're in great detail. So since then, now you just had some new revelations, some new updates. What can you tell us is going on now?
Well, let's see. I recently had a conversation with the Federal Bureau of Investigation because a foreign power approached me asking to buy the list off of me, and I was rather blindsided by that. So, of course, I let them know. And the FBI was kind enough to interview the person at length before he tried to leave the country back in, in May already. So this was back in January, I guess it was. So there's still, people realize there's some value information in these lists that I still wish I didn't have anymore, but I guess I do, and we're sitting around. More recently, there's a presidential candidate by the name of Pete Buttigieg, I think his last name is. I've never heard it pronounced.
Yeah, Buttigieg, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I read it, but I never heard it pronounced.
Yeah.
In any event, there was a lot of false statements about him being put out by some Republican operatives. One of them being a guy named Berkman.
Oh yeah.
And Berkman was one of Jeane's regular clients. Back in the day in 2000 and all.
Really?
So. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll send you the link on that.
Oh, yeah, definitely want to see that,
readers. And the point is, for me, I've always believed this list should be made public so people know about this. And this is just another indication that, there are people operating today in significant roles, publicly and privately, who were using the escort service then, and God knows whether they're still using other escort service now. I have retired from the escort business as an attorney, and personally as well, I'll just add apropos of that. But there it is. People are still, who were players back in 2007 using the escort service, are still involved now in our political landscape. And how do we know what's true, what's fake news anymore if we don't know the source and reason people are going forward with this stuff?
Yeah, Berkman was the guy who supposedly he offered a reward in the death of Seth Rich, and then he had this whole thing. He was trying to come up with this scheme of digging up dirt on Mueller. Had this bizarre press conference where his fly was open throughout the whole press conference. Yeah.
There you go. I mean,
in memory of Jeane. In memory of Jeane, he had his fly open. But that's a good example. Here's this guy. What motivates him to dredge up Seth Rich and go? Maybe he's being blackmailed. Why can't we know this?
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
I always think it's better with more information rather than less information. So, I mean, not to go off tangent, but when Facebook's or Twitter decides that certain people can be heard, or shadow list or shadow ban, whatever it's called, others obviously we're not doing it for somebody a service. If someone else is deciding what we can and cannot know, and that's exactly what the courts have done to me in terms of letting what I know out for the public to decide what they want to do with it or not. So
now,
that's where I am.
Yeah, the foreign power. You can't name the foreign power?
Well, you can guess.
Okay, I guess. Niet, he cannot name the power. Now, what about, how much did they offer you?
More than enough to live very comfortably and run a news bureau there on behalf of the government-sponsored news agency.
So
Nothing I wanted anyway. It was the wrong thing to offer me, but obviously I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm a patriot, and the FBI didn't think very kindly about this attempt. This guy was only 2 degrees separated from the President of the Republic, so obviously it was coming from them, and I just want to live my nice, quiet life in upstate New York, Ed, and I'm happy to do that from now on.
Now you broke up there a bit. They said they offered you some money and offered you a job over there too as well, running a news agency.
Yeah, they wanted me to be the face of their U.S. bureau, their D.C. bureau, news bureau.
Fascinating. And did this come up in any of the investigations? Are you named in the Mueller report or anything like that?
Well, it was before the Mueller report was released, and I thought there was a contemporaneous effort to get the information and do something with it. And so I can't read into it more than that. Obviously, I wouldn't have been interested in any circumstance, but the fact this was a foreign government made me very skeptical about what the motivations were and who the people were behind it. So that's when believe it or not, where I live up here, we have an FBI office. So I walked in and explained to them who I was, my background, and they thought it was pretty remarkable. And when the person who contacted me tried to leave the country, they stopped him at the airport and had a very long discussion with him, and he's not coming back.
And what year did all this happen?
January this year.
Well, so that's fascinating. So here we have 100 pages in this Mueller report outlining foreign interference in our elections, and this is a significant incident here, and it's not even included in that.
I misspoke, Ed. I just looked up real quickly. It was actually October of last year, and just give me the senior moment for getting my months confused here. Upstate New York, October and January and March all look the same. It's white and lots of snow, so I get the dates mixed up. But it was in October that I was contacted. That I turned around and let the FBI know that I think that they were trying to make a contact with me, and I wasn't happy about it. So that's when they picked the ball up and got it going.
Fascinating. So anything else going on you want to update us with?
No, my quiet little life. That's about it, Ed. Right now, I always keep you on my list of people to let know if something interesting happens. So I'm always happy to talk about that. And I just think our republic's in a rough point right now, and I just hope people step up and think before they act and think before they speak, because it's a rough time.
Mr. Sibley, I don't envy your quiet little life. Okay, but if you call that a quiet little life, I don't envy it at all.
Just to be clear, so it's on the record, and I said this before,
the
day I go missing is the day before the entire records hit the Internet from 5 different servers spread out across the planet. So they're on kind of a dead man's switch, if you will, so to speak. So I live my life up here, do what I'm doing, and leave me alone, and that's fine. But the day I'm not left alone is the day you'll be getting an email saying, click this link, Ed, and reach your heart's content.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, feel free to put me on that list, man. How can people find you? How can people find Montgomery Blair Sibley if they want to contact you?
Oh, they don't want to contact me, but on the Internet, my email address comes up real quick, Montgomery Blair Sibley. You'll find me no time at all.
Mr. Sibley, thank you so much. If anything comes up, please keep us informed, okay?
You know I will, Ed, and I really appreciate the work you do. There aren't enough people who get up every day and beat the drum for what needs to be said, and you're one of them, and I appreciate that to no end. I appreciate your words. Thank you very much. All right. Have a good evening. Good night. Okay, there you got Montgomery Blair Sibley. He was the attorney for the D.C. Madam, what was her name again? Deborah Jeane Palfrey. And like I said, we had a previous
what do you call it, show with Mr. Sibley. Went on for hours and hours and hours, going into every little detail about the death and the case. Fascinating stuff, man. The guy does some fascinating legal work there. Nice guy, too. And he does keep me updated on, he's always sending me little updates in the emails and stuff like that. I love to hear from him. And I keep hearing from people, too. I'm sure I'll hear from people after this saying, hey, Ed, you want the whole list? I'll say, the whole list. We got it. So it seems to be out there. And I went through some of these phone numbers that were in his motion last time. And a very aggressive move to insert something like that as an exhibit in a motion when there's a seal on it. very aggressive lawyering. It's nice to know lawyers like that have some testosterone in their testicles. Speaking of Palfrey and the D.C. Madam. But we got another scoop out of this thing here that Berkman, Mr. Berkman, who's that attorney who put out the big, he's the attorney and the radio host and the lobbyist, and he put up the big reward for Seth Rich, and he's investigating Seth Rich, blah, blah, blah. And he's got this kid, Wall, who got bounced from the SEC. He's not allowed to trade any stocks, can't even open an E-Trade account, okay, because of his bizarre behavior. And the two of them came and concocted this plan where they were going to dig up some dirt on Mueller, claim they had a witness. I got the press conferences in the members section, guys. Okay. By the way, I'm going to put these phone numbers in the members section too, because I'm sure I can find them. We're going to put this in the members section too today. I got a whole bunch of stuff going up in the members section too. I got a whole big giant Epstein document dump that's going to make even the most rabid researcher drool. Okay, it's a one-stop shop of content on Jeffrey Epstein that you're going to love. We're going to have these Montgomery, Blair, Sibley phone records are going to be in there. But this guy Berkman, man, keep an eye on this guy. I'm telling you, there was nothing on Seth Rich, man. It's been proven now. These guys knew there was nothing. Okay, they knew this for at least a couple of years, man. Back when I was working at that Sean Lucas thing with the DNC lawsuit by the Jared Beck and Elizabeth Beck. That's when I started looking into all this. And they had nothing back then, but they kept going on TV and on the radio saying, oh, yeah, we're investigating. We got a reward. And people, all the little fruit flies out there are just eating it all up. There's nothing to it. I told you this years ago. It just came out in the Mueller report that Mr. Assange has been misleading his listeners and his supporters and actually used the whole Seth Rich stunt as a diversion to protect his own butt, keep his own butt out of trouble. Anyway, so thank you so much, Montgomery Blair Sibley, and attorney for the Deborah Jeane Palfrey, the D.C. Madam. Okay, and like I said, we're going to be adding up in our member section all that stuff for you. I'll be right back after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. AlmightyGold.com. Get your gold in affordable quantities. 1 gram, 2.5 grams, 5 grams, no minimum purchase required. Why save in paper when you can save in gold? AlmightyGold.com understands it's difficult to afford gold in large quantities. No one can afford an ounce of gold. This is why Almighty Gold has introduced to you Carat Bars, a most reliable company where you can buy gold in minor quantities from as little as 1/10 of a gram. That's like $6. Each gold bar is inset into the Carat Bar frame, which is a standard credit card size, and it's covered by a safety laminate. It's imprinted with a unique DNA for counterfeit protection and provided with a blacklight authenticity signature on the front. Gold, AlmightyGold.com. They have a cryptocurrency backed in gold, and you can become an affiliate at AlmightyGold.com and make a commission from any gold that is purchased from your affiliate link. It's contact us at AlmightyGold.com. That's their email address. Contact us at AlmightyGold.com. Gold! Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe add new point-of-sale locations across the country quickly, or bring in revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services to your office building, warehouse, or lobby? CartKing.com is the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail, coffee, food, carts, and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. That's www.cart-king.com. Give them a call at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. So you go to the website, cartking.com, you check out their different designs and models. You pick out which design applies to your business. They'll custom design it for you, custom build it for you, and ship it worldwide. cartking.com. PureSoapFlakes.com. 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. Order today at puresoapflakes.com, greenhome.com, amazon.com, or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.